Good morning, everyone. I'll try that again because maybe that got cut off. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday. Cold open. I don't usually do cold opens, but I figured why not. It's a special day. It's election day here in the United States. Yay, election day! Where we can all feel like we've done something and made progress or made change or something. As Ranting Monkey often says, days like this are effectively his Super Bowl, and I kind of have to agree. I don't really pay attention to sports, but when it comes to politics, when it comes to all the stress and the drama and the hurt feelings one side or the other, it's very entertaining. So entertainment is where you find it. Anyway, hope you're all doing well this morning. A few hellos, and then I'll get into it. I find myself with about an hour to kill before I have more mandatory real-life concerns to deal with, so thought I'd catch myself up on what's going on in the election world ahead of election night. Jaeger Pony, Chaos Eve, Darren Root, Somnamnul Nation, Tarai Deos. Did I say that correctly? I hope so. Brittany Holland, Jamie Melquist, good morning to you all. And Mike Savage, Blarg. All right, so I picked out two articles and one running, update stream from CNN just to give ourselves some latest news. What's the big news ahead of tonight's election and the results that we will not get until like a week from now, apparently. Even though nearly every other election I've ever witnessed in my entire life, they've had either certified projections or results within the first few hours after the polls close. Apparently this year, of all years, we've been told over and over, don't expect the results for a few days. Why? I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting night. Maybe one of these articles will address that. Let's see. Stargazer, Nuts, Jonathan Peterson, Liesel7, good morning. Good morning. All right, so Biden readies for a horrible 2 years if GOP takes control of Congress. And it took 3 reporters to get this one out to us. All righty. Go away. I don't want these ads all over the place. As if Democrats needed any more convincing, Tuesday's midterm elections carry enormous stakes. President Joe Biden offered a bluntly dire assessment during a fundraiser last Friday in Chicago. Quote, if we lose the House and Senate, it's going to be a horrible 2 years for my administration, Biden told the small crowd gathered inside a hotel ballroom where cameras weren't allowed. The good news is I'll have a veto pen. You've had a veto pen this whole time. What have you actually got passed that actually helped people? Why don't you tout those things? Why aren't you playing up your successes and accomplishments as a counter to any criticism against you? After 2 years of Democratic control of Congress, a change in leadership in the House or Senate, or both, would thrust Biden's presidency into an entirely new phase. Yes, well, if they kept the House and also gained the Senate, I would thrust them into a new phase too. Anything that changes anyway. Biden himself has been projecting optimism in the final days of the campaign, but reality is setting in for Democrats. Their majority rule in Congress could soon end. Okay. That's just a awkward phrasing there. And Biden's ability to get his top priorities passed could go with it. He's had 2 years. Why hasn't he gotten his top priorities passed already? He's had 2 years and the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. Why hasn't he? Okay. White House officials have begun pointing out their losses aren't likely to be nearly as bad as previous midterm wipeouts, including in 2010. White House officials. Okay. And say the fact Democrats have a fighting chance at all is a positive sign for Biden. We got a fighting chance. That's a positive sign. Yeah, everybody's got a fighting chance, I guess. But his advisors privately acknowledged that they don't see a viable path for Democrats to hold on to their House majority, though the president and his senior team are starting the day with the view that the prospect of Democrats holding onto their Senate majority is real, even if it's one that may take days or longer to be fully realized. Tell us about that part. Yet even a loss of a few seats, Republicans need only pick up 5 seats to take control of the House, would mean dramatic changes for the president. Here are 4 areas that are at stake this Tuesday for Biden and his administration. Oh boy, we get a list. If we're doing a bingo card, I'd have a square circle. Who else has shown up? Ostsan, good morning. Zadkiel, good morning. Meh, good morning. Nellie Daniels, good morning. Absolutely Degenerate, good morning. Attack Alpaca, good morning. Good morning to you. GOP investigations. Oh, man. Can you imagine if one party decided to just like spend all their time investigating the other party for some reason? Hard to imagine, isn't it? Republicans on Capitol Hill have made abundantly clear that if they take control of Congress, Biden should get ready. Investigations are coming his way. A majority in the House or Senate would hand GOP lawmakers powerful chairmanships on a number of oversight committees, giving them the ability to launch investigations targeting Biden, the White House, and even members of the president's family. Who could they possibly be referring to there? Hunter. And so far, Republican members have indicated that they're eager to target all of the above, just as the Democrats were eager to target all of the above in the previous administration. Right, CNN? You could say something like, in a mirror of the Trump years, but you're not yet. Why is that? GOP lawmakers, including Reps James Comer and Jim Jordan, who are likely to chair the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees respectively, are getting ready to probe a range of issues, from the business dealings of Biden's son Hunter to what Republicans allege is political interference by the FBI and Justice Department to the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's not to mention the drumbeat of impeachment talk for Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas or even the president himself. Oh my gosh. White House officials have been expecting and preparing for this new world for months, including by making personnel hires earlier this summer to beef up its oversight operations. Basically, they're lawyering up ahead of expected investigation. Yeah, okay. Officials say if Republicans do, in fact, take control of Congress, the White House is prepared to beef up those efforts even more with additional hires and believe it will be ready to push back on future GOP investigations as lacking in merit, politically motivated, and nefarious. You mean like nearly everything that was going on during the Trump administration? Politically motivated, lacking in merit, nefarious? While officials have been cautious not to get in front of any GOP actions or prejudge the results of the election, even though they're hiring more people in preparation for expected investigations. So we're not prejudging, we're just playing it safe, okay? They are also keenly aware of political dynamics that may work in their favor. People familiar with the matter said, quote, American people historically don't respond well to egregious overreach, unquote. One of the people told CNN. Yeah, you know, like 4 years of investigations nonstop and 2 impeachments of the previous president, like 2 years of lockdowns, mandates, and so on. You're right. The American people historically don't respond well to egregious overreach. And it's entirely possible that the results of tonight's elections may show you the consequences of that, at least in part. Specifically citing a new Republican majority's battles with former President Bill Clinton. What? Specifically citing a new Republican majority's battles with former President Bill Clinton? What? Okay, admittedly, with the closing down of Lords of the Night, I have not been the nightly news hound I used to be. What battles with Bill Clinton has the Republican majority been having lately? Did I miss something? I've obviously missed something. I need somebody to reference for me what that is referring to. We'll be prepared, but it's tough to look at House Republicans and think this won't wander into that territory. What? Okay, I am totally lost. For a second there, I'm thinking, did they have some kind of typo in this and they meant Donald Trump? What current Republican majority is battling Bill Clinton and why? Okay, Don't know. Agenda. The historic likelihood that Biden would lose seats and majorities in Congress has loomed over the White House's entire term so far. Well, it looms over nearly every presidency because historically it is very common that the person or the party that is elected to the White House, by the time they get to the midterms, there's a shift in power. It's common. So they've been looking forward to it and planning for it, probably, because it happened to Trump, it happened to Obama. So anyway, it is part of what motivated the president's ambitious legislative agenda, including major COVID-19 relief and a bipartisan infrastructure package in the earliest months of his presidency. Yeah, and how did that go? Oh, and how does that compare in a dollar amount to what we've shipped over to Ukraine in the last 9 months? Just curious. If Republicans gain control of one or both chambers, the era of big progressive bills will likely end. Oh, no. Jeremy Clarkson. Oh, no. Anyway. Thank you, John Miller. Scribe, Dems still bemoan about big oil and life. Of course, they won't let Bill Clinton go. Well, no, I get it. I get it, but I just don't understand what they're referring to as Republicans fighting Bill Clinton. About what? Like, for a second there, I thought they were talking like historically or something, like they're going back to Whitewater or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Bill Clinton still shines as some example of, you know, a hero in the Democratic Party, which is amazing. But Bill Clinton benefited from the .com boom and the economy going through the roof. You know, not because he did anything specifically, just because he happened to show up there at that time. Because you look back on what he did and how he behaved and everything else, it's not exactly the prettiest picture, but, you know, rose-colored glasses and all that good stuff. Let's see. The GOP has already vowed to roll back elements of Biden's signature legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act. Well, how good has that been doing a job of reducing inflation? What happened just the other day when Biden started touting, hey, look, Social Security payments have gone up under my administration? Yeah, that's because they had to adjust for inflation. And then they had to delete that tweet. Including its new higher taxes on corporations. It's not going to affect inflation. And they could work to roll back or challenge some of the president's climate initiatives that are included in the package. Yeah, how is that meant to reduce inflation? You know, it's like you package something called the Save Puppies Act. Who wouldn't want to vote for the Save Puppies Act? What it actually is in the Save Puppies Act? Oh, you know, burning books. You wouldn't want to, like, not vote for the Save Puppies Act, would you? Other areas where the president has vowed action, like cementing into law the nationwide right to abortion. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. There was a tweet the president put out 1 or 2 days ago, said something to the effect of, if the Democrats win in this upcoming election tonight, they will codify Roe v. Wade into law. And I'm like, well, you know, Roe v. Wade's been around a while. Why didn't the Democrats codify it into law back in 2009 to 2011 under Obama, when they controlled all three parts, you know, both houses of the Congress and the presidency? Why didn't they codify it into law then? They've had opportunities to do this for decades, and they haven't. Why is it only now, if people vote for Democrats, will this happen? What's different about now? How is it? How are the vicissitudes of politics, sentiment, religion, and so on, and that moves people's lives? How is that so much different today than it was back in 2009? I don't know. I don't know how he can make that promise. But then it's a politician, so what do you do? Would have no chance of advancing if Republicans take control. It's got no chance of advancing if Republicans don't take control. Okay? You know, by tie-breaking vote, the Democrats have had control of Congress and the House and the presidency for the last 2 years. They haven't codified Roe v. Wade in that time. Why as soon as that draft memo dropped, why didn't they act to codify it and head off the Supreme Court at the pass? What was stopping them? What's been stopping them this entire time? I don't know. Same thing with the DREAM Act. There's so many things that you'd think, well, if you've got the political positioning and you've got the will of the people behind you on these things, as you say you do, what has been stopping you from doing this? What has been stopping you from putting these things in place? I can't imagine what it is. In all these areas, Biden is poised to wield his veto pen in rejecting potential Republican attempts to undermine his agenda. As president, Biden has not vetoed any bills, a facet of Democratic control on Capitol Hill. Yeah, and depending on how much their majority is, I mean, it probably won't be enough, but they could also override the veto. It's also possible to do that. Anyway, so basically, if the Republicans win, it's going to be 2 years of legislative gridlock, just like most latter 2 years of most administrations when they have a switchover in power in Congress as compared to the president. Nothing new here. There really isn't anything new. They're talking about like it's the end of the world, but if you compare this with the same kind of articles pre-midterm elections from the last 3 presidencies, same thing. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, a California Republican, has been among a number of House Republicans who have pledged to deploy similar tactics should they take the majority. I skipped a paragraph. White House officials have already been quietly preparing for the areas where agreement is a necessity, spending bills and an increase of the nation's debt limit. 2 issues represent must-pass items that have been at the center of a series of Congress versus White House battles over the last decade. Yeah, so again, nothing new. Okay. I'm still waiting for this whole, like, democracy is going to fall apart. Because everything we've been told so far is if you don't vote the right way tonight, or in this election, depending on when you voted, democracy's at stake. Yet everything that CNN's describing so far is effectively, word for word, the exact same concerns, consequences, and so on of every midterm election I've been alive in, at least. The first concrete signs of how that might play out will quickly become apparent. We can forecast that already. You are doing that right now. Lawmakers will return to Capitol Hill this month with a matter of weeks to reach an agreement to fund the government, just like every time. At the same time, Biden has a long history of working with Republicans to advance pieces of legislation. Does he? Well, how many has he done so with successfully? What has he done in the last 2 years in that regard? And he vowed when running for office to find areas to work across the aisle, something he was able to do on several of his key cornerstone legislative wins. Such as? Why don't you name them? I love this. It's like, yeah, he did it. When? I mean, maybe he did. I don't know. I don't have an encyclopedic memory of everything that he's done legislatively or claimed victory over. Why don't you tell us, CNN? Why don't you name off some of those wins that have evidence he reached across the aisle and actually successfully whipped up some Republican votes for his agenda? No? Okay. Biden advisors point to the $1 trillion of bipartisan infrastructure law and the $250 billion semiconductor manufacturing and science bill as providing a roadmap to bipartisan success. That's it? I mean, dollar signs and everything are big, sure, but that's all? What about the inflation bill? What about the climate change stuff? What about... Okay, $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure law. Hasn't that been wasn't that on the table long before Biden took over the presidency? Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm misremembering. A few more hellos for people that have popped in since I last glanced over a chat. Roger Reynolds, hello. Texas Attorney General Secret Agent, BG, JMK. Good morning. Good morning. Biden's 2024 decision. Ah, yes. As soon as the 2022 midterm election results are in, national attention will immediately turn to 2024, including on the question of whether Biden will seek a second term. While Biden and his aides have been quietly thinking about his political future for months, and they have accelerated conversations in the last month, those deliberations will accelerate with the close of the midterm cycle. Do you want to use accelerate a couple more times in this piece here? Biden has pointed to family meetings during the holiday stretch as important to his decision making, though people familiar with the matter say First Lady Dr. Jill Biden and others are on board with another run. But is Biden's physicality and cognitive ability on board? That should be the big question. That really should be the big question. For weeks, the president and his advisors have maintained that his intention, for now, is to run again. For now. Biden moved quickly to transfer his 2020 operation to the Democratic National Committee after he defeated former President Donald Trump, which apparently in CNN land is now just one word: Donald Trump. The party committee has spent the last 2 years maintaining and beefing up his grassroots list, fundraising pipeline, and building out state-level infrastructure that would make up the critical infrastructure of a nascent campaign. They've also said that no decision is final until the president has had ample opportunity to discuss his political future with his family. Ample opportunity? You mean, like, say, I don't know, in the lead up to the 2016 election, where he was trying to run, or in all the time since? Okay, when is he going to get ample time? If he hasn't had ample time at this point, when does ample time show up? Because he's still going to be president for the next 2 years. His schedule doesn't free up all that much. But Biden's 2024 decision won't just be a family affair. There will also be strong political dynamics at play. You don't say. Really? The decision of whether or not an incumbent president is going to run for a second term doesn't have any political dynamic. What? No. Because the Democratic Party has absolutely no one to put up in replacement of Biden. Absolutely no one with any traction. Kamala Harris would lose. That's the problem. They picked a vice president who will lose. Couldn't even win her own state. Couldn't even make it to the primaries in the previous presidential election. Completely wasted $40 million of her campaign war chest. She would never win the general election for president. They know that. They can't put her up. And if Biden takes a bow and doesn't back his own vice president, the chaos. For one, Trump's decision to seek a second term and the timing of that potential announcement is expected to be a key factor. Okay, so Biden's decision rests on Trump's decision. Biden is beholden to Trump? Okay, that's an interesting way to put it. Biden advisors continue to believe that the president is best positioned to take on his predecessor and are confident about a second Biden versus Trump contest. My concern isn't whether Biden is up to challenge Trump. My concern is whether Biden is up to be in a public office overseeing things. Because every time he gets up on a podium, every time he sits down for an interview, he's babbling, he's going off into la-la land, he's just nodding off, or he's incoherent. I don't care whether Biden has a political, leverage against his potential opponent. I care about whether or not Biden is fit for office at this stage of the game. That should have been the concern at the beginning of all this. It was for many. Should have been the concern of the Democratic Party. They didn't care. And they couldn't have him pick a vice president who would outshine him on any particular stage. So now they've set up a complete loser's game. If Biden continues on to a second term or runs for a second term, they've got a guy who is elderly and obviously having cognitive and physical problems. With a vice president who is so unpopular, she couldn't even win her own state in the run-up to the primaries. I don't know what to tell you. Another consideration, how fellow Democrats respond to the results of Tuesday night. Well, if past is prologue and tonight happens to turn into what people are expecting it to, with a massive Republican win, Democrats are going to be running around like their hair is on fire. Polling from this fall indicates a majority of Democrats say they do not want Biden to run again in 2024. That would be a wise decision, but primarily for his well-being, not necessarily for the party. And losses for Democrats could only exacerbate the sense within the party that a change in direction is required. I don't know how much more evidence you need that a change in direction is required. While many elected officials in Biden's party have been loyal in expressing their public support for a second term, some others have openly called for change. Democratic Representative Dean Phillips of Minnesota, who said over the summer that he does not believe Biden should run again, told CNN on the eve of Election Day that he believes, quote, a majority of Democrats, unquote, feel the same way. It really doesn't matter whether or not the Democrats control Congress, House and Senate. Does Biden have a chance of winning another election, given all the factors that everybody and their brother has been underlining since before he was elected? Because he cannot run on, I'm not Trump anymore. He doesn't have that luxury. That is the wind that was at his back in the previous election. I'm not Trump. Now he has to stand on his record as president and on all the other concerns about him physically and mentally. He doesn't have anything holding him up for a second run. He doesn't. Regardless of tomorrow's results, I believe Democrats must rebuild our brand. Oh, rebuild your brand? Well, you should have been doing that since 2016 when Hillary Clinton didn't get elected. But okay, I don't know what you guys have been doing in the last 6 years, but here we are. Rebuild our brand and repopulate our bench of future leaders for both Congress and the White House, Phillips said. You've had 6 years, and here we are. President Biden has fulfilled his promise to serve as a stabilizing bridge to the future. Stable? Do you guys feel stable right now? Do you feel stable? Do you feel the country is stable right now? Stable, unifier, stabilizing? Serve as a stabilizing bridge to the future, and I expect a majority of Democrats will be seeking a next-generation candidate to take the baton in 2024. What about Kamala? I mean, she's obviously the next generation, right? I mean, she was like historic. Everything in its breath. Oh my gosh, historic, so historic. Okay. Staffing changes. Biden has seen remarkably little turnover in the first 2 years of his tenure among his cabinet and senior team. Show solidarity, show strength by keeping on everybody, even if everything's going completely lousy. Also, since the president seemingly isn't really controlling his own schedule or destiny and keeps referring to people, basically people he has to answer to. You hear him coming off the stage in several instances saying, oh, they won't let me talk any longer, or something like that. Yeah, because who's really running the country? The halfway mark of his first term, however, could be a natural moment for staff changes. It could be. If he's smart, he drops Kamala and picks up somebody with a lot more cachet, a lot more credibility as a potential successor. Because if he retains Kamala Harris for the second part of his term, that's going to be hilarious. It reflects a reluctance to shake up his team, despite calls at various points to dismiss members of his administration. Biden has refrained from firing or asking for the resignation of any members of his cabinet and sought to lock in his senior team months ahead of this year's midterms. I mean, again, you could either look at it as, wow, he's got a great team. They work together very well. Everything that he wants to get done, the people he's working with are doing. Nobody's screwing up. What's the likelihood out of everybody that's in his cabinet and everybody else that's actually true? So is it strength or is it fear? There has been turnover among his senior staff, including in top West Wing positions. His press secretary, White House counsel, and senior advisor for public engagement all left earlier this year. Some officials decided to leave the White House around the 1-year mark of the administration, while others departed at the start of the summer. Yeah, but most of those were voluntary, right? It's not like he announced it or decided to switch them out. It's like they got jobs elsewhere. They decided, whatever. But Biden's inner circle remains mostly intact. It includes his chief of staff, Ron Klain, senior advisors Mike Donnellan and Steve Ricchetti, Deputy Chiefs of Staff Bruce Reed and Jen O'Malley Dillon, Communications Director Kate Bedingfield, and Top Communications Advisor Anita Dunn. Officials have said changes are possible both to the president's cabinet and his senior White House staff later this year, though no moves are guaranteed. Should Biden announce his decision to run in 2024, several of the members of his core team are considered likely to shift over to the political operation. Let's see. I'm going to scroll down a bit because this is all getting kind of. Hey, what's Road Warrior doing down here? The future of other officials is unclear. Klain has been the subject of speculation, and it is typical for the White House chiefs of staff to serve only a portion of a president's term. But as Biden faces the inevitable personnel transition that all presidents experience after the midterms, Klain's deeply ingrained role in all corners of the West Wing's operations may create even more incentive for him to stick around, some officials note, even as they acknowledge he's given no indication of his intentions. A potential replacement has been floated in. Dunn would be the first woman to serve in the role. There's never been a female chief of staff? And I'm asking that sincerely. I don't know. Is that true? Okay. I like the job I have, Dunn insisted at the Axios event. She added, I hope Ron Klain stays as long as Joe Biden is president. That's somebody playing politics right there. It's like, no, I'm happy where I am. I wouldn't turn down the job if it was offered. No, it's fine. Anyway, okay, so that's article number one. That's the big deal with Biden. So let me switch over to article number two, which has the got the big to do about a guy who I guess is only interesting because of how weird the situation is and who he's facing off against. It's one of those things where it's like, I've never heard of this guy before all of this, and I'll be surprised if I hear about him after all this is over with. A guy who had a stroke, who has decidedly noticeable cognitive problems in expressing himself and just sort of like operating in the world. But he's also a Democrat. And so how do you not notice his obvious debilitation and still vote for him on the Democratic side without comparisons being made to the president? That's been kind of the unfortunate. I mean, here's the thing. This guy's a victim of an absolute tragedy. He suffered a stroke. It's not his fault. Nobody did that to him. He didn't do it to himself. It happened. By all rights, he should probably not be running for public office. I mean, some people, they recover from strokes and they turn out fine and everything else in the middle of this campaign. Anyway, Fetterman sues to have mail-in ballots counted, even if not signed with a valid date. Remember, this is a Democrat. Pennsylvania Democratic Senate nominee John Fetterman's campaign has gone to a federal court to try to have Pennsylvania voters' mail-in ballots counted if they weren't signed with a valid date. How many of those votes can there be in a regular year? They must have some statistics on how many votes got rejected because of lack of a valid date in previous elections, right? I'm wondering if the article will tell us. The question of whether mailed ballots with incorrect or missing dates can be counted is one of the hottest voting disputes in the pivotal state leading up to Election Day, and a divided Pennsylvania Supreme Court recently ordered counties to refrain from counting mailed ballots with missing or invalid dates on their outer envelopes. Okay, well, that seems pretty final there. But Fetterman and voters his campaign has aligned with, are hoping the federal court will supersede the state court's decision. Right before Election Day? I mean, I doubt it. Quote, the date instruction imposes unnecessary hurdles that eligible Pennsylvanians must clear to exercise their most fundamental right, resulting in otherwise valid votes being arbitrarily rejected without any reciprocal benefit to the Commonwealth, unquote. It's not an unnecessary hurdle. It's putting the date on your ballot. It's not arbitrarily rejected. It's rejected because it lacks a date. There's a very specific condition that needs to be fulfilled for the vote to be counted. Unless my powers of vocabulary are failing me, which is entirely possible. I'm only an English major, not an English general. The date on a mail ballot envelope thus has no bearing on a voter's qualifications and serves no purpose other than to erect barriers to qualified voters exercising their fundamental constitutional right to vote. This unnecessary impediment violates the Civil Rights Act and the First and 14th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution. Okay, well, I don't know how votes work in Pennsylvania, right? I was able to mail in my vote, okay? And you have to, like, sign your name on the back and date it. I mean, these two actions take place effectively at the same time because the line to sign your name and the place to fill in the date are right next to each other. So, how is this an unreasonable barrier? I mean, you wouldn't accept a ballot that doesn't have a signature on it, right? I'm sure even Fetterman would have to say, if you have a ballot come in that has no signature on it, that you wouldn't accept it. Okay. So if the signature is there, but the date isn't, why wouldn't the date be there? It's right next to the same line. It's anybody who is a grown adult in this world has ever signed anything, like when you go to the doctor and you have to fill out that form or whatever, they have signature and date it, signature and date. It's almost reflexive at this point for anybody who's been alive. I don't understand the argument here. Republicans have advocated for rules around mail-in voting that would force ballots with missing information to be rejected. Well, I mean, all depends on the specifics, but maybe. The Fetterman campaign is joined in its lawsuit by the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Seems a bit one-sided, doesn't it? Quote, as we fight this latest Republican attack on Americans' democratic rights, Pennsylvanians should check their ballot status to ensure their vote is counted. We are committed to using every tool at our disposal to protect Pennsylvania's constitutional right to participate in this election, including defeating the GOP in court, the group said in a joint statement. Okay, if I don't sign and date a contract, is that contract valid? Does it remain valid if it's got my signature, doesn't have a date on it? You can't reference the date at which it occurred. If I don't put missing the date. Anyway, Republicans view holding on to the seat of retiring GOP Senator Pat Toomey as key to their hopes of capturing the Senate majority, while Democrats see flipping seats in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, both states carried by now President Joe Biden in 2020, as the best way to gird against losses elsewhere. Yes, we all know that the imperative here is just to hold on to the seat. Apparently, it doesn't matter the condition of the person sitting in the seat, as long as they are a warm body and call themselves a party that you want them to be. Anyway. Earlier Monday, a judge in Monroe County in northeast Pennsylvania decided that election officials could notify the few hundred voters there whose mail-in ballots were submitted with errors to give them a second chance to correct them. The few hundred. Okay, if Democrats in Pennsylvania are clawing for a potential couple hundred, right? Because all the errored ballots aren't necessarily those for Fetterman. For a couple hundred, let's just say, let's be generous. A couple hundred votes, they must be scared out of their minds if they're putting this much effort up for a couple hundred votes about how close this election is going to be. Anyway, I'm not going to go too much further into this because there's not much point to it. And I've got a limited time to do this stuff in. So we're going to move on to the running update from CNN on what's going on in the wonderful world of the election. So let me get that there. And live updates from CNN. Oh boy, what's going on? Vice President Harris is spending Election Day in Los Angeles. Oh. So she's spending Election Day in a city, in a state that she couldn't even get the votes for ahead of the primaries. Okay, her own state. Okay. While the White House is bracing for possible Election Day losses, Vice President Kamala Harris woke up this morning in rainy Los Angeles after telling a groups of organizers Monday night that Democrats would, quote, see victory, unquote. Okay. I mean, I'm sure they'll see some victories. Harris started Tuesday with her normal routine, a senior Harris advisor tells CNN, maintaining her daily morning workout and attending her normal meetings, which means receiving some form of the president's daily briefing while in Los Angeles. Just another day of being vice president. The vice president will receive regular updates on election news throughout the day. Well, so will I. So will you. So will everybody. From a host of staff in California, the executive building in D.C., where aides stay connected with officials at the Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and other Democratic Party officials who track midterm recruits closely. Yeah, the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. I did a story, a couple of years ago now on the DCCC and how they had a big shakeup in leadership, literally because the people at the top were white. For no other reason. They essentially just ejected this one lady who'd been doing work for the Democratic Party for a decade or something, for no other reason than she was white. And she resigned to make room because obviously she was a problem. It was an amazing story. Not all that unique, but still very amazing to read the quotes from people at the time who were like, we need a Latino in that job. Again, never talking about somebody's, skills, abilities, work experience, nothing else, just for the look, just because they felt bad about seeing the wrong skin color. Yeah, the DCCC, man, woo, great place to work. Harris is scheduled to spend Election Day calling into radio stations for quick interviews. Oh, and Kamala does great at radio interviews. Oh, man. Tell us about smoking up, Kamala. Tell us about smoking up. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Meant to drive turnout at 11 a.m. while her husband, second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, joins NARAL Pro-Choice America for a virtual political event on reproductive rights. Aides are also actively discussing if and how Harris could make an in-person and public election day stop somewhere in L.A., but are cognizant of how the vice president's large footprint could impede ground organizers during crucial voting hours. That is true. Just on a logistical basis, given the security necessary and everything else, having the vice president go through town might be a problem. The vice president and second gentleman voted by filling out mail-in ballots, which Emhoff said he would drop off after a rally on Monday. Okay, well, I mailed my ballot about a week ago, because I don't wait to the last second if I can help it. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Voting rights advocates report relatively smooth start to voting in several states. No, relatively smooth. Now, voting rights activists in key states for the first hours of voting in Tuesday's midterms appeared to be going smoothly, with only isolated problems reported. Quote, what we are seeing are things that we usually see on Election Day, said Susanna Goodman, Director of Election Security at Common Cause. What's Common Cause? Okay. Sometimes voters are going in and one of the voting machines isn't working or lines are a little longer. Oh, that's the not smoothness? Oh, okay. The key battleground state of Pennsylvania is, quote, not experiencing anything systemic. Khalif Ali, Executive Director of Common Cause, Pennsylvania, told reporters late Tuesday morning. What is Common Cause? I'd rather be hearing from, the Election Commission or something. Anybody know offhand what Common Cause is? Are they just like a poll watching organization or something? Like we're not actually speaking to... I'd rather hear from the people actually running the elections, the elected officials, state officials that are doing this stuff. Anyway, he said, whatever Common Cause is, there were a handful of calls about polls opening late in eastern parts of the state and some isolated incidents of electioneering occurring too close to polling places in Allegheny County. He said poll workers quickly addressed the problem by moving the people farther away. Okay. A key issue in Pennsylvania remains the thousands of mail-in ballots A key issue in Pennsylvania remains the thousands of mail-in ballots are risk of being rejected. Our risk of being rejected. Oh, my brain cannot take bad grammar. Being rejected because of missing or incorrect dates. Thousands? Wait a second. Thousands? We just told a second ago it was a couple hundred. Ali said he does not know how many ballots are affected statewide. Wait, okay. Is it hundreds? Is it thousands? Or you don't know? In the same sentence, the same paragraph. In the same paragraph, they go from thousands to he doesn't know how many there are. In Florida, Common Causes. What is Common Cause? Nellie Daniels, thank you. Common Cause is described as a watchdog group. Okay, well, why am I hearing from a watchdog group? Why don't I hear from election officials? I don't know the backing, the credibility, the allegiances of Common Cause. Why aren't we hearing from election officials? Okay. In Florida, Common Cause's Amy Keith said that more than 15,000 mail-in ballots had been flagged across the Sunshine State for signature problems or other issues as late as last week. Oh. Okay, well, first, it's thousands of mail-in ballots because of dates, right? When we were told in the other article, it's hundreds. The Common Cause guy says he doesn't know how many ballots are affected. But now Amy Keith of the same organization said that more than 15,000 mail-in ballots had been flagged for signature problems or other issues. Well, okay, it's either hundreds, thousands, which I guess 15,000 does fall within the descriptor for, or they don't know. Under state law, voters have until 5 p.m. Eastern Thursday to fix problems with those ballots. But Keith encouraged voters to go online to track their ballots and quickly resolve any issues before potential disruptions from Tropical Storm Nicole, which is bearing down on the state. Oh, I hadn't even heard about Tropical Storm Nicole. Oh, what's it? Oh, and the one right before it. Nearly 3,600 Philadelphia mail-in ballots at risk of... Okay, so it's hundreds, it's 15,000, it's 3,600. It's just... All right. Anyway, let's see what's the latest because they had the updates on here. Get up to speed. Yeah, I don't care about getting up to speed. That's what I'm doing right now. Florida to DOJ. Federal election monitors are not allowed inside polling locations. Okay. Florida officials warned the U.S. Justice Department that federal election monitors are not allowed inside polling places under state law, pushing back against federal plans for monitors in the state. Ooh. In a letter to DOJ dated Monday, Florida state elections officials argued that federal officials are not included on the list of people allowed inside polling places, and even if they did qualify, it, quote, would be counterproductive and could potentially undermine confidence in the election, unquote. The Justice Department announced plans to send election monitors to 24 states, including 3 counties in Florida, Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach. The practice of sending federal election monitors to local jurisdiction dates back decades. So, if it's a tradition, they have a law that says no. So, but the department did, quote, not detail the need for federal monitors in these counties. Florida Department State General Counsel Brad McVeigh wrote to DOJ in the letter. You want to send monitors to these counties. Why? What is your justification? What is your concern? I mean, if you did, you can't be there. The end. The Florida Department of State will send its own monitors to the 3 jurisdictions, according to the letter, quote, to ensure that there is no interference with the voting process, unquote. So monitors to 24 states. Why not to all 50 states? I mean, there are elections taking place in all 50 states. Why just those 24? What are your concerns? What's your justification? Florida Secretary of State Cord Byrd, an appointee of Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, who was running for re-election, told reporters Tuesday morning that the request by DOJ to go inside polling places was a deviation from years past when the agency sent monitors to Florida. DOJ under former President Donald Trump sent 6 monitors to 6 Florida counties in 2020, but Byrd said they kept tabs from outside the polling location. Okay, so they weren't inside. They were there. They were present, but they weren't inside. Okay. Quote, this is not to be confrontational in any way, Byrd said. They sent a letter to the counties asking for permission to be in the polling places. We told them that under state law, that is not permitted, and we asked them to respect state law and that they can go there and do their job, but they have to do that job outside of the polling place, unquote. Asked why the state didn't send a similar letter in 2020 when Trump's DOJ monitored 6 Florida counties, Byrd said there was no change in policy. The Justice Department told CNN it has received the letter, but declined to comment. Why are you not going to respect the state's laws? This is that whole, states' rights things versus federal oversight. You can be there, you just can't be in the building. Are you going to defy them? That's going to be interesting. Keep an eye on that one. But yeah. Anyway, trying to see if there's anything else here. I got a couple of minutes. Oh, holy cats. Thank you, Redneck Ram. Common cause, bear paws. And when I cut my finger this morning, I was thankful it wasn't bad enough to be in need of some clean gauze. There, I made it into something fun. Well, thank you, Redneck Ram. Common cause, bear paws. Well, if you did actually cut your finger, I'm hoping you did, but if you actually did, I hope it's okay and, it's not too bad. But otherwise, if it is bad, go to the doctor. Had some concern for Ranting Monkey earlier this week when he apparently fell down the stairs, and he had, as according to him, sustained a concussion. He hasn't gone to the doctor as far as I know. And he had a headache last night. So I'm hoping Ranting Monkey is okay. Why do I bring up Ranting Monkey? Well, tonight, at least as is currently scheduled, granted that he's feeling up to it, and I hope he is, tonight, for election night, I'm going to be on Ranting Monkey's channel for election coverage. So if you'd like to hear more from me, and especially from the Ranting Monkey on the incoming results of the nationwide midterm elections in America, you can find us over there at a time I don't know yet, because I don't know when he's planning on starting. I'm assuming just before the polls close on the East Coast. So I'm guessing sometime around, say, 7 Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. But I don't know for sure. So this is why it's important to follow us on Twitter for notifications, and also ring that bell and subscribe to our channels and all that good stuff. Now you can follow me on Twitter at @scribe_light. There should be a notification of that in the description. And right now you can find Ranting Monkey's cousin reporting on Ranting Monkey's movements on Twitter with the tag Angry Monkey 422. That's capital A Angry, capital M Monkey 422 on Twitter. But with that, everybody, I'm going to call it here. I have a thing I have to do now that I can't get out of, but I will certainly be here tonight, or at least not here, but on Monkey's channel tonight for more election coverage. I hope you found this at least somewhat entertaining, informational, educational, time-filling at the very least. But if you'd like to hear more from me directly on this channel, you can find me here Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for another episode of TED Excellence, where I'll take another look at an off-brand TED Talk for enlightenment and enjoyment. I call it enloyment. Sure. Either way, everybody, thank you so much for joining me for this Ambush Election Day stream. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, thank you. Thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. Hope you all have a good rest of your Tuesday. Go out and vote for whoever you want to vote for and have fun doing it if you haven't already. And be sure to check out Ranting Monkey's channel tonight, and we'll see what happens. If we're told anything, because obviously everything's going to take days and days and days to get the results in now for some reason. Everyone, I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.